So welcome back to our second video of the AP Psychology series, and as some of you may not watch my first video, Unit 1.1 Introducing Psychology. I recommend all of you to watch that video first so that you can have a basic understanding of what psychology is and what are some subfields and like important psychological approaches. So today we'll be continuing our journey in AP Psych or psychology in general, but we'll use AP as a format or like the basic outline. And today we'll be, as the name suggests, we'll be talking about research methods, and specifically research methods that will be used in psychology. There are various types of psychology research methods in psychology with different purposes, strengths, and weaknesses. So here's a diagram. This diagram is from the website 5.0. So if you want to check out more of that, just like search 5.0 on Google. So our first method is experiments, which you may heard a lot in other science fields as well. Its purpose is to manipulate one or more independent variables to determine the effects of certain behavior, and one of its strongest strengths is that it can determine cause and effect, and can also be retested and proven, which is used by establishing a scientific protocol, which is super helpful in retesting and be further redoing the experiment, and etc. And it has a couple weaknesses though. The first one is it could have potential ethnical issues, and then it may have the artificial environment created low realism, and people know what they're being researched, which could impact what they say and do. So this concept we'll mention in another, as we mentioned, the social psychology section, and yeah, just know there are weaknesses. And our next research method that will be introduced is correlational studies. It involves looking at the relationships between two or more variables and is used when performing an experiment is not possible. So it's really easy to conduct an experiment because you just look at the relationship. And second, it can be used when an experiment is impossible. For example, a researcher may want to examine the relationship between school grades and Adderall. It will not be ethical to force students to take high doses of Adderall, so one can only rely on participants' responses. But its main weaknesses is it cannot determine cause and effect, which is kind of sucks. Yeah. And our next research method is survey research, which, as the name suggests, where a lot of people know, is the collection of information reported by people about a particular topic, and it's really cost effective and is also most reliable. And also, since I'm the director of online research for a couple organizations, I know some people do race survey because it's really easy to do, and yeah, and it's really easy to collect data. And then, but it has some main weaknesses. It's low response rates, can't verify the accuracy of an individual's response, because let's say you just saw some people did this answer for this question, and then you just copy them, which doesn't really represent your own opinion. You just did the survey for convenience. Okay, and another research method is naturalistic observations, and this will be tested on MCQ section a lot, and they will give you a scenario, and they ask you to determine which research method it's being used or it could be used. Yeah, and naturalistic observation usually come up a lot. Okay, so its purpose is that the research observes the object's behavior without intervention. So to just stare at the object from a distance, and their behaviors won't affect the object they are observing. The behavior, yeah, it won't have an impact on them. It's strength is natural settings more reliable than a lab setting, which is for sure. And weaknesses, people behave differently when they know they're being watched, which could impact the results. Yeah, this is kind of similar to experiments, and the concept here is called Hawthorne effect. Yeah. And the second one is two researchers could see the same behavior but draw different conclusions because they may like infer the object's behaviors differently. For example, if they're observing like an animal, I guess, and from a distance, for sure, of course, and like the bear was like seeking someone, like we're like digging a hole, and two researchers may conclude different things from these behaviors based on their previous knowledge, which is kind of like really kind of not helping their actual research, I guess. Okay, continuing, we have case studies. It's an in-depth study of an individual or a small group. Usually, case studies are done on people with work circumstances. For example, a girl named Jenny was locked in her room, causing a delay in development. Researchers did a case study about her to understand more about language and human development stages. And there are some really famous psychological cases in history. For example, HM or Phineas Gage, which will be mentioned in our like next 1 or 2 slides. I forgot which one I put, so yeah. And it provides detailed information because everything you study is about this object, so you will learn a lot from this person or like this object. But second, about its weaknesses are like cannot generalize results to a wider population because it's most often used for like rare cases. And second, it's difficult to replicate and it's really time consuming because all you did is like observing or like learning about one thing or like one object, and you don't really like, so like in order to get a full sense of what the actual thing look like, you need to spend a lot of time on like, I don't know, looking after or like staying and being around of them. And then we have longitudinal studies, and it's like the same individuals are studied over a long period of time from years up to decades, and it can show the effects of changes over time, and it's more powerful than cross-sectional studies. However, it requires large amounts of time, just as the case studies, and also it's really expensive. Okay, now we have cross-sectional studies, and it examines people of different groups at the same time. For example, studying people that are different ages at the same time to see what differences can be attributed to age. So this is really commonly used for like, I saw a lot of questions in AP Psych, either in mock exam or the actual exam. Like there were questions saying like, there were like researchers interested in students, and they conducted like a thing or like a survey thing the students and see like what are some like why are the responses different compared like by grades. So like different grades like grade 3 or grade 4 and grade 5. Yeah. And it's really quick and easy to conduct and generalizable results. However, it's difficult to find a population that differs by only one factor, and also it cannot measure changes over time. Okay, so here are some examples for each of those research methods. The first one's experiment, and this is Solomon Ash, and he investigated the extent to which one would conform to a group's ideas. One sec. Yeah, so like each person in the room would have to look at these lines, like the ones on the right corner here, to look at these lines above and state which one they thought was of similar length to the original line. The answer was, of course, obvious, which is C, but Ash wanted to see if the real participant would conform to the views of the rest of the group. So he gathered together what we could call fake participants and told them not to say line C. The real participant would then hear wrong answers, but they did not want to be the odd one out. Like they don't want it to be like everyone is the same answer, but I'm the different one. So they confirmed with the rest of the group and represented the majority view. In this experiment, the real participant was the control group, and about 75 of them over 12 trials conformed at least once, which is really surprising, isn't it? Like the answer is super obvious, but like they just don't want to be the oddie. And then we have an example for correlational study. There could yeah, but like it's not like a real example because correlational study could be like between anything. So say you wanted to see if there was like a association between the numbers of hours a teenager sleeps and their grades in high school. If there was a correlation, we cannot say that sleeping a greater number of hours causes higher grades. there was no cause and effect in the correlational study. Please remember this. It is super important. However, we can determine that they are related to each other. It's more like a relationship than cause and effect. And then we have survey research. They're used all the time, especially in advertising and marketing. They're often distributed to a large number of groups, and the results are returned back to the researchers. Like maybe, I don't know, since it's really easy to conduct, a simple example would be like giving out surveys to your high school student classmates and asking their opinions on a new policy, governmental policy, or like a social media trend, or like a social event, I guess. And then we have naturalistic observation. If a student wanted to observe how many people fully stop at a stop sign, they could watch the cars from a distance and record the data. Their observation doesn't affect the car, so like there's no way influencing the actual results, which is super good. Yeah, but like people may have different inferences from those results. Okay, so now here comes a case study. As I mentioned previously, there's a famous psychological case called Phineas and of the accident of Phineas Gage. So he was a just like some basic information about this person. He was a railroad construction foreman who survived a severe brain injury in 1848. The accident occurred when an iron rod was accidentally driven through Gage's skull, as this picture shows, damaging his frontal lobes. Despite the severity of the injury, Gage was able to walk and talk immediately after the accident and appeared to be relatively uninjured. However, there are some major changes to his personality after following the injury. He became impulsive, irresponsible, and prone to outbursts of anger. However, like all of the people who knew him before the injury happened say like he was super kind and like treating people really well. So the accident really changed his personality. Which were completely out of the character for him before the accident. His case is famous in the history of psychology because he was one of the first to suggest that damage to frontal lobes of the brain can cause like a severe change in personality. So this is how like people started to recognize or like realize like different parts of the brain have like different functions in like maintaining the entire human body to work in the ways that we now see. Sorry about my throat. Okay, so here are some practice questions. So number one. As last video suggests, please like just pause after I read the question and do the question by yourself, and then let's check whether it is correct or not. So the first one, a person observing one person's life from birth to death can be considered which type of research? A, case study, B, experiment, C, survey, and D, naturalistic observation. Pause the video. Okay, so the answer is the naturalistic observation. Because, yeah, you just like observing one person's life, but you don't intervene with what their behaviors are or like what they do. So it's not like causing them having an impact on the results. So it's the second question. Dr. Little seeks to conduct a survey on the effect of COVID-19 on the class of 2020. She plans to administer the survey to the same participant in 2020, 2025, and 2030. Which type of study would this be? Pause the video. So the answer is longitudinal because this is she just like administers the same group of people, but like they look at how these people change at certain like interval of time, which is as the year suggests. So it's longitudinal. And then we have our question 3. To describe the behavior of animals in their native habitats, researchers are most likely to make use of A, survey research, B, experimental methods, C, random assignment, and D, naturalistic observation. Pause the video. So the answer is still naturalistic observation. Apparently, survey research cannot be conducted to animals because they couldn't really understand what humans are saying. B, experimental methods because it's in like native habitats, it's like outdoor and it's not in a lab. So it's really hard to do like experimental experiments. So it's not B. And C, random assignment. This will be covered in our later videos about like statistics. And yeah, because it's like observing the behavior, so it's obviously naturalistic observation. Okay, question 4. What is the limitation of service? A, hardness of distribution, B, wording effect, D, narrow scope, and C, narrow scope, and D, hard to create. Pause the video. So the answer is wording effect. We didn't really talk about this when we're discussing service, but wording effect is basically like how you are making a sentence or organizing a sentence affect the way that you're thinking or like making the first impression of the question of the survey. So this may like change your opinions on a certain thing based on how the sentence is structured. So which is really, so like the sentencing and wording in the survey questions must be like seriously considered before you actually send out the survey. Okay, so here's the summary of today's class. We introduced we did some research methods, and we talk about all those different methods and with examples. Yeah, thank you for listening, and please subscribe and like this video if you really enjoy it. And there will be more AP psychology related videos coming up. And also, if you're interested in neuroscience, please also subscribe because this channel will be like about neuroscience and psychology a lot. So thank you for listening.